But when we're talking about 310 division and when we're talking about the encampment, it gets very precarious for me because I have to be very careful. There is an opinion currently in the public that I did a bit of a flip-flop around 310 division, that I was very supportive of it at the county, and now that there's a pushback in Cobourg against it, that for somehow I'm flip-flopping. I want to be very clear on this, and I think it's really important. When I was elected, I was told about some big problems in this community around our warming room, around transition house, around 6 or 7 residential units in our community that were very, very difficult and were creating safety issues for our community. I convened a roundtable discussion with the Mayor of Port Hope prior to being sworn into county so that I didn't have a conflict of interest. And I asked them, as the Mayor of Cobourg, what can I do to help these vulnerable individuals in our community? What can I do to advocate on behalf of social services? And it was interesting because everyone told me about the money they needed. All the people, whether it's the advocate side or the institutional unit and provider side, everyone was like, we need more money. After we sort of allocated that, well, Cobourg, the $30 million budget, has 1/100th of the budgets of all of the groups around the table. Clearly, it's not a money issue for the Mayor of Cobourg. And then I asked again what the problem was. And again, what they all told me was that there's a need to tear down barriers between organizations. Well, I found that interesting that they want someone with 0 social service experience to get involved with tearing down barriers between social service agencies. All this to say, I felt that at the end of this meeting, one of the things I needed to do was to bring to light in the public space the problems that these agencies and these advocates were facing. And how do you do that, York? Well, you do that by changing things. So what did we do? We no longer shied away from these housing units that were causing issues in our community. And instead, we took a very proactive approach to health and safety. And in doing so, we closed some of these units. What did that do? Well, it had the negative consequence of pushing some of these more vulnerable individuals into our community and into our knowledge base. We had encampments start up. Okay, well, one problem solved, new problem created. And so we started working with the encampments. We started working to find shelter spaces and. And what we found through this is that the current transition house isn't up to snuff with the required needs of our community. Well, okay, now 310 division's here. And I am a big supporter of the idea of improving our shelter service. You see, York, our current transition house is not adequate. The warming room is not a solution. And our motel program is not the best way of moving forward. So when the opportunity of 310 division came up, as the councillor at Northumberland County, of course, I am 100% in support of this, because that's what we've all been looking for, is for the county to really step up and to provide the kind of quality social services that this community deserves. Full stop. That happened. And now is the time to renegotiate the relationship between Cobourg and Northumberland County. And so now that is my position, that we need an agreement between the lower tier and the upper tier about who's responsible for what. We need accountability as the residents of Cobourg, that when there are issues, as we know there will be, who's going to pay for those issues? Who's going to clean up? Who's going to pay for the increased security? Who's going to pay for the increased call demand? There are so many things that I don't even understand, because guess what? I'm not a social service delivery expert. I'm not a bylaw. I'm not police, and I'm not fire. I have a whole incredible group of staff here who can't wait to have that conversation with their counterparts at the county so that we can have that understanding.